The middle pillar, Science and the Sacred, Beyond the Garden, When Science Confronts Biblical Thinking, featuring the musical transmission, The Book of Unwritten Truths. Written and narrated by Daniel M. Tanguay. Copyright 2025 The Middle Pillar Society. All rights reserved. This audiobook is licensed for personal transformation and private listening only. Unauthorized reproduction, distribution, or public performance is strictly prohibited. An instinctual love for God.
Being raised in a Catholic family, I can remember being instilled with a love for God and an understanding that if there is a creator, it should be looked up to for guidance and given unquestionable respect. From a very young age, I was taught that God's awareness was always upon me, watching me, and maybe even judging my actions. The thought process was instilled there initially. The unfortunate thing was, at a young age, I didn't comprehend the difference between my instinctual desire to be connected with something divine and the programming constantly driven into my mind by my family's religious beliefs. As discussed in other chapters, I became acquainted with Eric Pepin around August 1987, 1 month before my 15th birthday. Before our introduction, I had been told far-fetched stories about Eric. One friend said to me that Eric had genuine savant abilities, which he had witnessed on multiple occasions, and now I will confirm this reality. Unbeknownst to me, Eric's lessons would soon lead me to change how I understood and reflected upon my existence. My understanding of God, the universe, and the interconnectivity of all living things. Given my fanatical Catholic upbringing, and my deeply instilled belief that seeking knowledge of God from any other source was the work of the devil, I remain surprised that I managed to set aside my Catholic ideological defenses long enough to let Eric offer me a different vision.
A prophetic warning, my future role in this awakening.
One day, decades ago, shortly after we met, Eric looked at me with the certainty of someone seeing the inevitable and predicted, "One day, you are going to write a book that will reach many people I cannot." At the time, I had no idea what he meant. I carried those words with me for years, not fully understanding them. Yet I began journaling and taking extensive notes. As the years went by and I looked back through my documented realizations and experiences, I discovered there was a path meant to be shared with those seeking the knowledge I had been privileged to uncover. Now, decades later, I am completing this book, and his words are becoming a reality. I have become the very thing he predicted.
The intellectual prison of religious thought.
After reflecting on my understanding of God before meeting Eric, I realized the plight of the spiritual seeker in our society. Religions define for us what God is allowed to be. These churches of thought limit the range of thinking people can engage in, keeping them from ever reaching more profound realizations and discoveries that lie outside the boundaries of what is taught to them. As more people gathered under religious banners, these ideologies reinforced and protected themselves, becoming self-sustaining machines capable of consuming vast minds and neutralizing their ability to think beyond doctrine. I began to wonder, how does a person who truly desires a sincere relationship with God ever have a fighting chance at discovering something greater? His words helped me realize that the problem lies in the fact that most people never question or research what they understand. Knowledge is passed down from generation to generation, sometimes for thousands of years, without ever being challenged. When left unquestioned, these ideologies become like prisons for the mind until we finally break free and expose the illusion through the diligent pursuit of truth. Eric's perspective sheds light on how most great spiritual leaders who reached enlightenment, such as Jesus, Buddha, Mohammed, Krishna, Gurdjieff, etc., tried to offer their actual knowledge to the world. But the world lacked the technology to secure their lessons in a way that could withstand the corruption of man's ego and kingdoms. The result? The world's religions became intellectual prisons.
Questions that demand an answer.
I once believed without question, accepting every word as absolute truth. But like water wearing away at stone, the questions emerged gradually yet persistently, impossible to ignore. The deeper I delved into my search for answers, the more I realized that what I had been taught was unquestionable, was built upon a foundation of misconceptions and historical inaccuracies. This realization led to an even more troubling question. If an all-knowing, all-powerful God truly exists, Why would such a being need to misrepresent the accurate scale and nature of creation? Or perhaps there is a more straightforward, more human explanation. The authors of the Bible were not divine beings, but mortal men, products of their time who wrote with the limited knowledge available to them, knowledge that modern science and scholarship have now utterly surpassed in both scope and accuracy.
The Bible's small universe versus reality's magnificent vastness.
The Bible presents a remarkably confined universe. But when we venture beyond this ancient perspective, the actual reality proves astoundingly different. The biblical stage dissolves into an ocean of cosmic light and time. Modern science reveals that our Earth, far from being the center of all things, is a mere speck of dust adrift in an incomprehensible void. Our Sun is just one of an estimated 200 billion stars in the Milky Way galaxy, a swirling city of light that is itself only one of 2 trillion such galaxies scattered across the observable universe. This cosmic story unfolds not over 6,000 years, but over a staggering 13.8 billion years of evolution. This stark contrast raises a profound question. If an omniscient deity exists, what purpose would be served by presenting such a drastically reduced version of creation's accurate scale and grandeur?
The physical impossibilities within biblical narratives.
When examining a text that many believe is divinely inspired, we find numerous descriptions that fundamentally contradict our modern scientific understanding. These inconsistencies reflect the limited scientific knowledge available to the ancient authors rather than divine insight. These include a flat, stationary Earth, a geocentric cosmos, an Earth age of 6,000 years, and biological impossibilities like talking serpents and men surviving for days inside a fish. These accounts remain firmly in the realm of supernatural mythology rather than scientific possibility.
Powerful analogy, the child's drawing versus the Hubble telescope.
Imagine a child drawing the universe, crayons scratching stars onto paper, a smiling sun, a flat Earth. Compare that drawing to a Hubble Space Telescope image, a deep field of galaxies stretching across billions of light years. The difference is staggering. This example shows the same gap between the Bible's view of the universe and what we now know. The Bible is a child's drawing, a limited, primitive attempt to explain reality. Science, like Hubble, reveals a truth far beyond what was once imagined.
The final invitation, you were never alone.
We now know the universe is more vast, intricate, and awe-inspiring than any ancient text ever imagined. And yet, despite its vastness, you are not separate from it. You are an instance of something far more significant, one consciousness experiencing itself through infinite lives, infinite forms, and infinite perspectives. The ego fears its end, but the truth is this: there was never an end to begin with. Your existence and awareness are not accidental. The universe did not give birth to you, it became you. So let go of the fear. There is nothing to lose. There is only everything to remember. Because you were never truly alone, you have always been the whole. You can cling to the old stories bound by the illusion of separation, or you can step beyond myth, beyond self, beyond fear, and return to what you have always been. 1.
Beyond the cages of belief.
To honestly remember our origin, however, to hear again what has always called to us, we must do more than deconstruct old ideas. We must unlearn the very way we have been taught to perceive. We must become willing to set down the golden cages we were taught to worship and step into the wild, living presence that was never bound by names.
The architecture of belief.
In the ancient texts, the infinite was clothed in the garments of tribal memory: king, father, ruler. This was not the fault of the early writers alone. What was once a living current was frozen into dogma by those who sought power. Over centuries, kings, priests, and empires shaped these fragile metaphors into instruments of control. The living mystery was flattened into rigid roles. Father, king, judge, and complex spiritual realities were reduced to systems of obedience. Their architecture of belief filters our perception, distorting the living light into rigid statues.
The cages of perception, why we fail to hear the call.
If a higher, intimate field of intelligence does exist, it is not limited by its willingness to reach us. It is limited only by our ability to hear. Its interaction with humanity is filtered through the perceptual cages we have built.
1. The cage of sensation.
Human perception is tuned for survival, not transcendence. Our senses perceive danger more quickly than beauty. The divine often speaks in frequencies softer than fear, and so it is overlooked.
2. The cage of expectation.
Beliefs shape perception. If someone expects God to appear as a bearded man on a throne, they will overlook the quieter forms of contact. When expectations are too rigid, miracles pass unseen.
3. The cage of tradition.
From birth, most are taught to accept secondhand descriptions. Traditions fossilize living mysteries into static dogmas, and we subconsciously reject any encounter that challenges that script.
4. The cage of certainty.
Those hardened by skepticism or fear close the doors before they can hear the knock. But those willing to live in mystery find themselves visited by experiences no rigid mind could predict.
5. The cage of language.
If consciousness transcends human language, then no single story could ever fully capture it. Language is both a bridge and a cage. When held lightly, it points to the mystery. When clutched rigidly, it blinds us.
A personal reflection, emptying the glass.
As a child, I was taught about God as an external authority, but something inside me rebelled quietly. There were moments, in the stillness of nature, in the awe of starlight, when I felt the presence of something vaster, more intimate, more alive than anything I had been told. It did not match the stories. It did not demand worship. It invited recognition. The longer I walked the path of awakening, the more I realized that the divine had never been confined to books, names, or thrones. It was and always had been the living pulse of reality itself. But to feel it fully, I had first to empty the glass. I had to set down the inherited idols. Only then could I taste the water flowing freely all around me.
The call that never ceased.
The sacred has never abandoned humanity. It waits in the spaces we were taught not to look. It breathes through the trees, sings through the wind, and echoes in the spaces between our thoughts. But to hear it, you must first let go of what you think it should sound like. You must become a blank page, a still lake, a quiet room where the ancient wordless voice can be heard once more. True awakening is not about adding new beliefs, but about clearing away the rubble of old ones so that the original song can rise again. The call has never ceased. The question is whether we are ready, finally, to listen.
The Book of Unwritten Truths.
Before we close this chapter, we invite you to experience its message in another form. Music can bypass barriers and speak directly to the soul, where words sometimes fall short. We'll play it for you now if you listen to the audiobook. If you're reading, you can find the track for free at youtube.com at the middle pillar, and let the music carry you deeper into the truth beyond the written page.
I was raised where the pages told me who to be, bound in ink written deep inside of me. The voices of prophets, the words of the past, said never to question, said never to ask. But something was missing, a crack in the stone, a whisper of wisdom I had never known. The stars held a secret, the wind knew my name. A truth left unwritten was calling in flames. So I turned the page, but the words weren't there. Only echoes of silence and ink in the air. Beyond the book, beyond the lies, I saw the truth in endless skies. The universe spoke where no preacher stood, in the book of unwritten truths. Told me to fear what my heart couldn't see, that heaven was locked and the key wasn't free. But love has no borders, the soul has no chains. The cosmos was singing inside of my veins. A voice deep within me began to arise, not written in pages but burned in the skies. I left behind doctrine, I let go of fate, and walked through the door they said shouldn't be made. So I turned the page, but the words weren't there. Only echoes of silence and ink in the air. Beyond the book, beyond the lies, I saw the truth in endless skies. The universe spoke where no future to shine. The wind never waited for words to be lined. The truth doesn't bow, the truth doesn't kneel. It's written in fire and things you can feel. So I turned the page, but the words weren't there. Only echoes of silence and ink in the air. Beyond the book, beyond the lies, I saw the truth in endless skies. The universe spoke where no preacher stood. In the book of unwritten truths. Now I'm weightless, a whisper, a flame. No longer afraid of the sound of my name. The truth was not given, the truth never died. It was waiting inside me this whole time. The book of unwritten truths.
Closing note.
This work, The Middle Pillar, Science and the Sacred, is made possible by the generous support of spiritual finders like you, those who not only seek but actively uncover the truths that unite us all. If this chapter inspired you, please consider joining us in this sacred mission. Support us at www.patreon.com/themiddlepillar. Your contributions directly enable the creation of new insights, music, and shared wisdom, helping us reach more seekers while spreading light to all who are ready to find it. Thank you for being a part of this transformative journey. Together, we illuminate the path for others.